The Chicago Fire Season 14 premiere is just around the corner, and seemingly so is One Chicago's first crossover and possible next romance. NBC's procedural drama returns after a 4-month hiatus, and many things have changed at Firehouse 51. For starters, 2 characters will be gone, and another one will leave imminently. A possible new love story is also in the air. When Chicago Fire Season 14 premieres, it'll have been a few months since Severide and Kid discovered she was pregnant. Herman stepped down as lieutenant so that Mooch could take the position, and Violet and Carver declared their love for one another. Consequently, things will be very different at the beginning of Season 14, as seen in a first look at Episode 1. A first look at Chicago Fire Season 14 shows Violet and Novak at Chicago Med. Violet and Novak crossover with Med early. Hanako Greensmith as Violet McCarmy and Jocelyn Hudon as Lizzie Novak in Chicago Fire Season 14, Episode 1. Credit, NBC. Images from the Chicago Fire Season 14 premiere depict the firefighters and paramedics of Firehouse 51 on a call. They also show the return of Rita, the absence of Carver and Damon, both of whom have left the NBC series, and the arrival of a new character, Brandon Laracuente Sal Vasquez. Additionally, one photo depicts Violet and Novak at Gaffney Chicago Medical Center. The picture, shown above, reveals that Violet and Novak will cross over with Chicago Med during the Season 14 premiere. Of course, it likely won't be a big deal as they are undoubtedly at the hospital to drop off a patient, which they often do. Violet and Novak might not even see or interact with any Chicago Med characters. However, there's evidence that proves otherwise. Novak will be spending a lot of time at Med this season. Chicago Fire's showrunner teased Novak's heavy presence in One Chicago's mini-crossovers. Hanako Greensmith as Violet McCarmy and Jocelyn Hudon as Lizzie Novak in Chicago Fire Season 14, Episode 1, 2. Credit, NBC. TV Line learned from Chicago Fire showrunner Andrea Newman that the One Chicago TV shows are developing multiple mini-crossovers for the upcoming 2025 to 2026 network TV season. In particular, it sounds like Novak will be spending a lot of time with the Chicago Med crew in the coming episodes. Newman teased that Novak would be crossing over a bunch with Med for intriguing reasons. The Chicago Fire showrunner didn't go into detail concerning Novak's involvement with the Med characters. She only explained it as intriguing. So, it's unclear why the paramedic will be interacting with the doctors and nurses, or maybe just one of them or of Gaffney. As mentioned, Novak and Violet often go to the hospital to drop off patients. However, these mini-crossovers will be different. Novak won't be frequenting the Chicago Med set just to routinely bring injured people to the hospital's emergency room. That wouldn't be quite intriguing, as Newman said. It also wouldn't be any different from previous appearances in the past, which couldn't exactly be labeled as mini-crossovers. Novak has to have a better reason for crossing over with the characters of Chicago Med. The most likely explanation behind Novak's frequent visits to Gaffney is that she's going there to see a particular person. Since Damon, her most recent romantic interest, is gone, perhaps Novak will find love with someone from Chicago Med. And that person might just be one of the medical drama TV series' newest characters, Dr. John Frost, played by Darren Barnett. One Chicago hasn't had a new cross-show romance in a long time. Novak could start a relationship with Frost. Frost and Novak walking together in One Chicago crossover. Many couldn't help but notice sparks flying between Novak and Frost during the 2025 One Chicago crossover. Frost joined Novak and Violet on Ambulance 61 for a ride-along at the beginning of the 3-part event and helped them attend to the wounded at the site of the explosion. Frost and Novak didn't interact too much during the crossover, but their chemistry had potential. Taking One Chicago's big crossover into consideration, one can't help but think that Novak's mini-crossover with Chicago Med has something to do with Frost. Plus, the fact that Novak is single and Damon is gone adds to the theory that she will appear in Med a bunch of times because of a romance. And Frost is the most likely candidate. Frost is single and just so happens to be around Novak's age. All the other Chicago Med male characters are either taken. Mitch Ripley, who starts dating Sadie in Season 10, are much older than Novak, Daniel Charles, or are likely to have a baby on the way, Dean Archer. The only true option is Frost, with whom Novak has established chemistry. Jocelyn Hudon, who portrays Novak, has signed off on a Novak and Frost romance. The actress previously told TV Insider that she believes there is something to explore between Novak and Frost, perhaps teasing what's to come in Season 14 and Season 11 of Chicago Med. Given all this information, the One Chicago universe has a new cross-show romance waiting in the wings. It has been a long time since characters from 2 different One Chicago series dated. The most recent cross-show relationship, aside from Mooch and Trudy, was between Brett and Antonio in Chicago Fire Season 6. So, it's safe to say that the franchise was due for a fresh romance, and Novak and Frost might provide just that in Chicago Fire Season 14.